It's time to rank every Karate Kid movie. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I am ranking all 6 Karate Kid movies from my least favorite to my favorite. I just saw Karate Kid Legends this week. Check out my review linked up above. But I have some thoughts. I rewatched the trilogy. I rewatched the 2010 film, I watched the next Karate Kid for the first time, and of course I saw Legends, so this is going to be a very fresh ranking. Before I get into this though, hit that like button, comment down below your ranking of all the Karate Kid films, and of course, subscribe to that notification bell to help reach my goal of 150,000 subscribers here on the channel. I mean, quite a bit. Without further ado, let's get in, and I'm not holding back on this ranking. This is going to be 100% honesty. At number 6, in dead last for me, is Karate Kid Legends. It's the newly released film, and I slept on this. Like, I literally went to sleep, thought on it, and it's the worst. It was bad. Walking out of the theater, I felt that way, but it was between this and another movie for what the outright worst is, and the reason this one is cemented as the worst of all 6 is because of how outright soulless it is. There's no heart in this film, and of all the films, it's the one that's like the most desperate and just a cash grab. It sickens me that this movie exists, and it wastes the return of 2 great actors, Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan. Now, they're both in the movie, but not really. It's very mismarketed. It's Sony doing Sony things. They did this with Venom, with Madam Web, with Uncharted. They just don't know how to manage properties. And so Legends is just them trying to capitalize off the Karate Kid brand. Because this movie's terribly rushed, just strung together, and they shoehorn in some elements of Karate Kid to try and make it into a Karate Kid film when it's just not that. Now, Ben Wang, the main kid who plays Lee, he's charming. He's got a future ahead of him as an actor. The movie, on the other hand, not all that. It's generic as they come. You know everything before it happens. What really frustrated me was about 50 minutes of this movie, it felt like, were not even a Karate Kid film. Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio were just on the sidelines, and you got this new kid training a dude who owns a pizza shop how to box. What the hell are we doing? That's not the Karate Kid. The obligatory third act tournament in this movie is filled with awful editing, and like every time someone gets punched, a graphic pops up on screen showing the points earned, and they add this like cheesy video game sound effect. It all just felt like complete BS. And they rush through the tournament just to reach a climactic fight that's unearned. On top of that, this entire movie is rushed through. Everything's a transition. We're constantly cutting to new scenes. There's not a moment to breathe. It all just feels so artificial. And it's so evident that Sony just wanted to capitalize off the Karate Kid. I really have a lot more to say in my review. You should go watch that for the full rant. But this movie just pissed me off. At least it didn't butcher the ending of Cobra Kai. But to me, this movie does not need to exist. And it's an excuse for a Karate Kid film. It's bad. There are other bad films in this franchise. But this one's the outright worst to me and my least favorite because of the intentions, right? Some of these other movies are bad, right? But they might have had their heart in the right place. Here, no. This is solely greed. And it shows. This movie stinks. At number 5 on my list is another movie that's not very good at all, The Next Karate Kid. I just watched it for the first time, but you know, at least this movie has Mr. Miyagi, and so you're going to have moments where Miyagi's trying to pass on some wisdom to Julie Pierce, played by Hilary Swank. Now, this movie is almost a fever dream. I'll read you my Letterboxd review. Things I never thought I would see in a Karate Kid movie. Monks going bowling, a hawk named Angel, Walton Goggins, a military police force of students at a high school, monks dancing, indoor bungee jumping at prom, and the city of Boston. The Next Karate Kid delivered on all of those. Plus, it's the worst movie in the franchise, for now. Notice how I put for now? Because I had a feeling about Legends. Anyway, this movie is absurd. There's no other way to cut it. At the opening of the movie, Miyagi is like being honored for his time spent in the 442nd in World War II, but what ends up happening is he goes to the house of the widow of someone he served with in the war, and the widow's granddaughter is Hilary Swank, and she's like this angsty, rebellious teenager who's running out. Well, the grandmother, the widow, is just like, I need some time away. Miyagi's like, why don't you go stay at my house in California, and I'll just watch over your house. It makes no sense. That's actually insane to even believe could happen in the year 2025 especially. It's a very weird concept for a movie. What ends up unfolding, just as weird. There's like this police force of students at the high school that can just kind of run free. It's like if the ROTC at your high school were the hall patrol and they could just like do whatever they want. And there was a colonel there named Colonel Dugan. What the hell are we doing here? That was wild. Walton Goggins shows up in this movie. I was like, oh, it's Walton Goggins. Look at that. That was cool to see. But during the middle of this movie, Julie Pierce, the main character, gets suspended from school, and so her and Miyagi just go to a monastery with monks, and that's where she like learns karate. It was so all over the place. The third act, again, absurd. There's like a car explosion at a dock. Colonel Duggan is like telling these people to kill this main kid. It was ridiculous. This movie in existing is a fever dream, but when compared to the new film Legends, at least this one, again, has Miyagi, and it's from the 90s, so it's mega cheesy, but there's a bit of an endearing quality to it when you take a step back. Does the movie stink? Absolutely. But it's more watchable than Legends because at least it's put together like a film. There's like clear motivations for characters. There's at least some of a payoff. The characters grow and change in the movie. It doesn't just feel like some BS presentation trying to be a Karate Kid movie. It has elements of the original trilogy, mainly because of Miyagi's screen presence, but the movie is riddled with flaws. It's not really worth your time. I think my description of it might have actually sold some of you, though, because it is so stupid. It feels like a fake movie, like something you would dream in your sleep, but it exists, it's real, and you can go watch it right now. So next Karate Kid is the second worst in the franchise. Above that, I've got the 2010 Karate Kid remake. At the time of its release, it was pitched as like a remake of the original film. Now it's technically canon, so I don't know what the hell's going on. But this movie is dull and it's repetitive. It hits on every major beat that we see in the original Karate Kid, except it's a lesser, inferior version with characters and frankly performances that do not deliver. The movie is overlong. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, the longest movie in the entire franchise for no good reason. It drags and drags. Oh man, I thought it was never going to end on rewatch. Jackie Chan is a highlight here though, as Mr. Han. There's a mystery to this character. They do give him a backstory and actually develop him as a character. And you know, Jaden Smith as Dre, he's fine. Not the best performance in my opinion, but he was a young kid there, so, you know, you can kind of let some of it slide. But they rip off the Karate Kid. It's a remake, essentially, right? So instead of wax on, wax off, they do the same thing with a jacket. And so it's just like, let's take everything magical about the original Karate Kid that works, right? And let's change it. Let's change the setting. It's basically like it copied the original assignment in a lesser way and failed. So it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but when the original Karate Kid exists, why would I ever go watch this? You know what I'm saying? It is just a remake of that, modernized in a new location with new characters, but everything about it is less interesting, less unique, less charming. So it is a duller version of the original film. One of the most forgettable entries in the series, for sure. Next up on my list, I've got The Karate Kid Part 3. What's fascinating about this movie and the second is how they're strengthened by Cobra Kai the series, a show that came out years after this movie's initial release, has actually gone back and made the movie better, which blows my mind. But I think this is quite clearly the most absurd of the original trilogy. It was panned when it came out. It's usually, you know, remembered as the weak link of the trilogy. And the reason being is this movie full sends on the 80s cheese. The other two movies are cheesy, but this one, they go all in. You've got Terry Silver, played by Thomas Ian Griffith. He's the big bad villain here. John Kreese is back in the picture. And Terry Silver's been, you know, called a Bond villain over the years, right? You can see that. He's essentially this coked up rich dude who is funding Cobra Kai, and then he goes and plays undercover spy and tricks Daniel into training with him just to screw him over in the end. So it's goofy, very much so. John Kreese, when he's in this movie, he's going over the top, with these wild facial expressions. And even Miyagi and Daniel, the two main characters, are acting fully out of character for most of the runtime. Like, they just get back from Okinawa, so it's right after the second movie ends, but Daniel is supposed to go to college with this money, and he's like, you know what, actually, let's fund Mr. Miyagi's bonsai tree business, because that's smart, and Miyagi goes along with it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. They're constantly doing dumb shit, just not learning from their mistakes. It's a frustrating watch. The plot's just filled with nonsense, really. It all culminates with another All Valley that conveniently they've changed the rules to where the previous year's champion, right, the defending champ of the All Valley, only has to fight in the finals. So they were like, yeah, we should probably throw an All Valley in here, but we'll just tweak it a little bit so that we can just have Daniel fight in the finals so it doesn't have to go through the gauntlet again. It was kind of bull. But I will say, with the context of the Cobra Kai show, it's fun to go back and watch this knowing where John Kreese and Terry Silver end up in that show, right? Like, if Cobra Kai didn't exist, this movie would be a lot less watchable. Cobra Kai strengthened the character Terry Silver, it strengthened John Kreese, so when you go back and watch this with the context of some of the flashbacks from Cobra Kai and just knowing where those characters end up with the current day Cobra Kai, right? It's a bit more rewarding to go revisit this and see their origins, their roots. It also gives us, you know, Cobra Kai never dies, the moment between them going like that. The Mike Barnes character, mega cheese, but he also returns in Cobra Kai. And so if not for a TV show legacy sequel all these years later, Karate Kid Part 3 would be even worse. It's just a fun movie now to go back and watch. Like, what's crazy to say out loud is, like, I might actually rewatch this over the second movie, but I do have the second movie over it. My runner-up is The Karate Kid Part 2. This film's pretty slow. Now, it's not bad, it's just a lot slower moving than you would hope. The main plot of the film involves Miyagi and Daniel going to Okinawa because Miyagi's father is sick. However, there's this whole backstory about how Sato and Miyagi trained together, and Miyagi, went away, but when he comes back, there's this girl they both were in love with, so Sato wants to fight him to the death. They got Shozen Taguchi introduced here. Really ramps up the cheesiness there, but this movie is fundamental to understanding the lore of Miyagi karate and why Mr. Miyagi is the way that he is. It adds a lot of depth and expands the lore of the Karate Kid universe, the Miyagi-verse, if you will. So I appreciate the movie for that alone. Seeing Okinawa, the roots of Miyagi's history, all that fascinating stuff. Kumiko and Daniel have a sweet relationship here. You get the ice-breaking moment where Daniel, smashes through the 6 sheets of ice in front of Shozen. And then in the final fight as well, you've got the epic moment where Daniel takes down Shozen. It's the payoff of a callback set up earlier in the movie. So it follows a template we've kind of seen, but it is a charming enough entry that really adds to the rich lore of Miyagi karate. It's the runner-up for me because thematically it's better than the third. There are ideas of like redemption at play here between Sato and Miyagi, your own history, your legacy, if you will. So I think that it does a lot furthering the lore of this entire world, and it's a solid enough continuation, but maybe not as rewatchable or goofy fun as Part 3. But you all knew what number 1 was going to be, right? It's the original Karate Kid from 1984. On my most recent rewatch, I finally bumped it up to the 5 out of 5 club. It's an infinitely rewatchable film that appeals to all generations, and that's why 40 years later, right, this movie is still making an impact on kids today, because it deals with these ideas and themes of, bullying and your self-image, your worth, but also who do you want to be in life? This is like one of the must-watch coming-of-age movies that perfectly captures like the 80s high school feel, but also how to overcome obstacles, adversity, and deal with someone who's picking on you. It's a really impactful movie. The score by Bill Conti, beautiful. There are multiple pieces of music that give me chills full body. The soundtrack, come on now. Cruel Summer's a banger. You're the best around. Great stuff. And you've got William Zabka as Johnny Lawrence here. Come on now. I had to represent in this review. You already know. It's my favorite character. And he is, again, made better by the Cobra Kai series. When you go back and watch this trilogy, it's really impressive to see how the creators of Cobra Kai were able to fill in these little gaps and add so much depth to original characters so that when you go back and watch the movies where it all started, you view them through a completely different lens that you never did before Cobra Kai. So this movie and the trilogy as a whole are a lot better because of the Cobra Kai show. But this is a classic tale. I mean, the Karate Kid has become iconic in pop culture to the point where it's referenced in like tons of movies and shows. Legend, wait for it, dairy, one could describe the film as. If you know, you know.
The Karate Kid was William Zabka, star pupil of the Cobra Kai dojo.
But it's one of the most inspirational movies around. All of that probably due in part to Mr. Miyagi's character. He drops wisdom bombs on Daniel LaRusso and really, again, motivates you to better yourself in life. That's what I take away from The Karate Kid. Is like, this is a movie that will make you want to make changes in your life for the better. It's comparable to Rocky in a sense of this underdog story that you inherently want to root for this kid, Daniel LaRusso, in taking down Johnny and Cobra Kai. It's a movie that stood the test of time for 40 plus years and will continue to do so for years to come. It is an iconic 80s film that has become a must-watch in society for a reason. It is the Karate Kid, the best movie, and it will always be the best of this franchise by a long shot. But that does it for my ranking of all the Karate Kid movies. Let me know yours in the comments down below and hit that like button. Subscribe to that notification bell and be on the lookout for more videos coming very soon. But thank you guys, as always, for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.